Picture the most iconic image of beauty in all of human history. Dramatically lined eyes, a perfectly symmetrical face, elaborate gold jewelry, and an air of absolute confidence that has been copied and imitated for over 2,000 years. You are picturing ancient Egypt, but here is what most people do not realize. The beauty practices of ancient Egyptian women were so elaborate, so scientifically sophisticated for their time, and in some cases, so completely bizarre by modern standards, that they deserve the full story. Because what Egyptian women actually did to look beautiful is one of the most fascinating chapters in the entire history of human vanity. And almost none of it is what you think. We are covering all of it today. The kohl that doubled as medicine, the crocodile dung face masks, the wigs made from real human hair, the perfume cones that melted on their heads at parties, and the beauty ideals that reveal everything about what this civilization valued most. Let's get into it. Before we get into the practices themselves, there is one thing you need to understand that completely changes how you see everything else in this video. In ancient Egypt, beauty was not considered vanity or frivolity, the way it has been in many cultures throughout history. Beauty in ancient Egypt was sacred. Presenting yourself as beautiful and well-groomed was understood as an act of devotion to the gods, a demonstration of your connection to the divine order of the universe, and a marker of moral as well as physical health, because in Egyptian cosmology, your outward appearance reflected your inner spiritual state. This meant cosmetics and beauty rituals were not the exclusive domain of wealthy women, but were considered appropriate and even necessary for people of all classes and both genders. The goddess Hathor, patron of beauty, love, music, and joy, was depicted wearing elaborate eye makeup and jewelry, making the act of an ordinary woman applying kohl, or wearing a necklace a direct tribute to the divine. So when we look at Egyptian beauty practices through a modern lens of vanity versus practicality, we are fundamentally misunderstanding what these practices meant. They were simultaneously cosmetic, medical, spiritual, and social acts that cannot be neatly separated without losing almost all of their meaning. If there is one image that defines ancient Egyptian beauty to the modern world, it is the eye. That dramatically outlined, extended, darkened eye that stares back at us from tomb paintings and golden death masks with an intensity that feels completely modern despite being thousands of years old. The substance used to create this look was called kohl, made primarily from galena, a naturally occurring lead sulfide mineral, ground to a fine powder and mixed with animal fat or plant oil to create a paste applied around the eyes with a small stick, producing the distinctive heavy-lined look we now associate so strongly with ancient Egypt that it has become one of the most imitated makeup looks in all of human history. But here is where it gets genuinely remarkable. Modern scientific analysis of ancient Egyptian kohl samples has revealed that alongside the galena, Egyptian cosmetic chemists deliberately added specific synthetic lead compounds, lauryonite and phosgenite, that do not occur naturally and must have been produced through deliberate chemical processes involving galena, water, salt, and natron, representing a level of intentional cosmetic chemistry that is extraordinary for a civilization operating over 3,000 years ago. Why add synthetic lead? The current best theory is medicinal. These specific compounds have been shown in modern laboratory studies to stimulate immune responses in skin cells, and to have mild antibacterial properties, suggesting Egyptians had empirically discovered through thousands of years of observation that this treated kohl reduced eye infections, a significant practical benefit in a hot desert environment where eye diseases were endemic and potentially blinding. Before galena became dominant, Egyptians used malachite, a brilliant green copper mineral, painted around and beneath the eyes, creating a vivid green eye makeup, look associated specifically with the god Horus and with themes of regeneration and rebirth. The kohl itself was stored in small containers, kohl pots, that are among the most beautifully crafted everyday objects in the entire archaeological record of ancient Egypt, made from alabaster, faience, glass, and carved stone in forms including miniature columns, fish, monkeys, and human figures, suggesting that even the act of storing cosmetics was considered worthy of fine artistic craftsmanship. Ancient Egyptian skin care was sophisticated, extensive, and remarkably effective. And the surviving evidence comes not just from cosmetic objects found in tombs, but from actual written recipes in medical papyri describing skin preparations in enough detail that modern cosmetic chemists can analyze and, in some cases, reconstruct them. The foundation of Egyptian skin care was oil, plant and animal oils applied to the skin daily to protect against the drying, aging effects of desert sun and wind, including castor oil, moringa oil, almond oil, sesame oil, and various animal fats including hippopotamus fat, which appears in Egyptian skin care recipes with a frequency suggesting it was considered particularly effective. Castor oil appears in Egyptian cosmetic and medical texts for skin and hair applications at a time when the civilization of ancient Rome did not yet exist. Egyptian women were discovering one of the most effective natural moisturizers available thousands of years before modern science confirmed why it worked. Then comes the part that stops most people cold. Among the substances Egyptian medical texts recommend applying to the face for improving appearance and removing wrinkles are crocodile fat, hippopotamus fat, snake fat, and, most notoriously, substances derived from crocodile dung, which appears in several recipes specifically for treating skin blemishes and uneven complexion, making it arguably the most alarming beauty product in human history. Beyond these extreme preparations, Egyptian skin care included genuinely sophisticated formulations, the ebers. Papyrus contains anti-wrinkle preparations combining plant resins, oils, and mineral ingredients that modern analysis suggests would have had real moisturizing and skin smoothing effects, and natron, the same sodium carbonate salt used in mummification, was used in diluted form as an exfoliant and skin brightener that functions chemically similarly to modern sodium bicarbonate-based exfoliants. Another case of ancient empirical discovery, anticipating modern cosmetic chemistry by several millennia. Ancient Egyptian hair culture contains a paradox that is genuinely difficult to wrap a modern mind around. Egyptians simultaneously valued elaborate, beautiful hair as one of the most important markers of beauty and social status, and routinely shaved their heads completely, wearing wigs instead of their natural hair, making the wig the actual primary medium of hair expression, rather than something worn to disguise hair loss. Egyptian wigs were not the cheap theatrical props the word suggests to modern ears. They were extraordinarily sophisticated, expensive, carefully crafted objects made from real human hair, sheep's wool, plant fibers, and combinations of these materials, styled into elaborate braided, curled, and layered arrangements requiring significant skill and time to create, and considered valuable enough to be included among grave goods for use in the afterlife. The practice of shaving was driven by a combination of practical and religious motivations. In a hot desert climate, a shaved head under a wig was more comfortable and hygienically manageable than natural hair. It eliminated lice that thrived in hair, and it allowed status-signaling wigs to be worn over a clean, smooth scalp. Hair care for natural hair involved the extensive application of castor oil, moringa oil, and animal fats as conditioning agents, alongside combs, hairpins, and straightening implements made from bone, ivory, and hardwood. For both wigs and natural hair, ancient Egyptians used beeswax as a styling agent to set braids, hold curls, and maintain complex hairstyles in the desert heat, making ancient Egyptian women arguably the inventors of hair wax, a product that would not be reinvented under that name until the 20th century. And that works on exactly the same principle today as it did on the banks of the Nile 3,000 years ago. Ancient Egypt was the birthplace of the perfume industry, not as a romantic oversimplification, but as a documented historical fact, supported by archaeological evidence, written records, and chemical analysis of residues in ancient containers that make clear Egypt developed the most sophisticated fragrance culture in the ancient world. The most visually striking element of that culture, and the one that always gets a reaction, is the scent cone, which appears in dozens of tomb paintings, showing elegantly dressed banquet guests with what appears to be a solid white cone balanced on top of their elaborate wigs, depicted melting slowly over the course of an evening. For years, Egyptologists debated whether these were symbolic artistic conventions or actual objects, and the debate was settled in 2019 when archaeologists excavating a worker's tomb at Amarna found the first physical scent cones ever recovered, confirming they were real objects worn at real social events, made from a mixture of animal fat, beeswax, and fragrant botanical ingredients, including myrrh and frankincense, that melted in the Egyptian heat and released their scent as they liquefied and ran down through the wig onto the neck and shoulders of the wearer, functioning as a slow-release, personal fragrance system that intensified as the evening progressed. The ingredients used in Egyptian perfumery were among the most valuable commodities in the ancient world. Myrrh and frankincense were so essential that Egypt mounted entire military expeditions to secure access to their sources. Most famously, Queen Hatshepsut's expedition to the land of Punt around 1470 BC, specifically to obtain myrrh, trees, and incense. Kifi, the most celebrated Egyptian perfume compound, was a complex mixture of up to 16 ingredients, including myrrh, frankincense, cinnamon, juniper berries, raisins, wine, and honey, mixed according to carefully guarded recipes, and used both as temple incense and personal fragrance. Its recipe considered so important, it was inscribed on the walls of the temples at Edfu and Philae, where it survives to this day. Egyptian women applied fragrance using scented oils and unguents, thick preparations of animal fat infused with fragrant plants, through enfleurage, a technique of pressing flowers into fat and allowing fragrance molecules to transfer over days or weeks that remained the primary method of extracting delicate floral fragrances in European perfumery until the 19th century, meaning a technique developed in ancient Egypt was still state-of-the-art in Paris 3,000 years later. Ancient Egyptian beauty extended well beyond the face. The entire body was considered a canvas that deserved attention, maintenance, and decoration, and the standards applied were remarkably specific and remarkably consistent across several thousand years of Egyptian civilization. Body hair removal was practiced extensively by Egyptian women and men using a variety of methods, including bronze razors, which have been found in Egyptian tombs dating back to the Old Kingdom period, and which were kept sharp and well maintained as personal grooming tools, and a sugaring paste made from a mixture of sugar, water, and lemon juice heated to a specific consistency, and applied in a manner functionally identical to modern sugar waxing, which strips hair from the root and leaves the skin smooth, making ancient Egyptian women the inventors of a hair removal technique that has been continuously rediscovered and rebranded by the modern beauty industry multiple times over the past century without ever acknowledging its actual origin. Henna was used extensively in ancient Egypt for body decoration and hair coloring, applied to the hands, feet, and nails in decorative patterns, and a hair to create warm red and auburn tones that were considered beautiful. And the tradition of henna application in Egypt predates the Islamic period by thousands of years. Egyptian jewelry was among the most sophisticated and visually striking in the ancient world. Wide gold collar necklaces called wesek covered the chest and shoulders in layered rows of gold, faience, and semi-precious stones. Bracelets were worn stacked on both wrists. Earrings became widespread from the Middle Kingdom period onward, and the specific combination of gold with turquoise, carnelian, and lapis lazuli, the deep blue stone imported from Afghanistan, became the defining color palette of Egyptian luxury that we still recognize instantly today. The ideal of beauty in ancient Egypt, as expressed in tomb paintings and sculpture, was specific and consistent. A slender but shapely figure, smooth dark skin, large almond-shaped eyes, heavily outlined in black, high cheekbones, a long, graceful neck, and the overall impression of youth, health, and vitality. And this ideal was applied equally in representations of goddesses and mortal women, reinforcing the connection between human beauty and divine appearance that underpinned the entire Egyptian approach to personal presentation. So, here is the full picture. Ancient Egyptian women were not simply putting on makeup in the morning. They were performing an act that was simultaneously cosmetic, medical, spiritual, and political, using ingredients that their civilization had refined over thousands of years of empirical observation, stored in objects of extraordinary craftsmanship, and understood within a framework that connected the appearance of a human body to the order of the entire universe. The eyeliner you might put on this morning has a lineage that goes back 3,000 years to the banks of the Nile. The castor oil in your moisturizer was in an Egyptian woman's daily skincare routine before Rome existed. The enfleurage technique that created your perfume was perfected in an Egyptian workshop millennia before the first French parfumerie opened its doors. Ancient Egyptian beauty culture was not primitive or exotic or bizarre. It was sophisticated, intentional, and deeply human, and it connects every person who has ever stood in front of a mirror trying to look their best to a lineage of women, stretching back to the very beginning of recorded history. If this video made you see your own beauty routine differently, hit subscribe Drop in the comments which Egyptian practice you would most want to try and which you would absolutely not. And I will see you in the next one.